Yenachem etchem. May the Holy One comfort you. Hamakom Yenachem, Yenachem etchem. May our love embrace you. B'toch sha'ar avilet Zion, Yerushalayim. May her memory bring you peace, bring you strength, and be a blessing. Hamakom Yenachem, Yenachem etchem. May the Holy One comfort you. Hamakom Yenachem, Yenachem etchem. May our love embrace you. Baruch atah b'voecha, uvaruch atah b'tzeitecha. B'toch sha'ar avilet Zion, Yerushalayim. May her memory bring you peace, bring you strength, and be a blessing. Hamakom Yenachem, Yenachem etchem. May the Holy One comfort you. Hamakom Yenachem, Yenachem etchem.
Adonai, ma'adam v'teda'ehu, ben enosh v'tachashvehu. Adonai, O God, it is beyond our grasp that our lives truly make a difference, that you or anyone should notice. For in the scope of this vast universe, we are like a single breath. Our days are like a passing shadow. We come and we go like grass shoots up renewed, and in the evening fades and withers. At the end of our lives, it is ordained that we return to the earth, that we are at one with all creation. Our souls, however, continue on to eternity. If only we were wise, that we understood what happens when our days on earth have ended, then death would not seem as a total ending. For when we die, we carry nothing away. Our deeds on earth and the love that we gave and shared does not disappear, but lives on through those we touched and treasured. There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with the people we love. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us on earth is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the stars that guide us. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. Death has taken our beloved Harriet and her family and so many dear friends. All of us here grieve the loss we must now face. In our tears, there is loneliness. Lost in sorrow, may we find the presence of loving friends, and may we be strengthened by the gift of family. And when it comes to the Correns and the Bermans, there's a lot of that, and a blessing. For Harriet's love that united us in life, and which death cannot sever. For her companionship that we shared along life's path, and which continues through the tenderness of memory. For all the gifts of her heart and mind that brought so much joy and happiness, and is now a precious remembrance. For all these and more, we give our thanks. There's a well-known Yiddish expression, man plans and God laughs. And it's so true, because we never know from one day to the next what life will bring. One day we're celebrating, and here we are today mourning. But it's all a circle that no one can escape. I think Harriet used to say that all the time, didn't she? You can't escape it. And so here we are again. This loving family and the many friends and admirers who are also family. This time to hold one another and support one another, but also to celebrate an amazing life of an amazing woman who we can't say enough about to ever do it justice. And we sit here in this temple, in this sanctuary that Mel and Hilly and Harriet and their whole contemporaries built. This place in which they gathered so many times to celebrate life and to observe the sorrows as well. And so today we do just that. We mourn and we celebrate as we remember the life of Harriet Corren. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. L'chol zman ve'et l'chol hafetz tachat hashamayim. For everything there is a season, and a time for every experience under heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to uproot what is planted. A time to tear down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to grieve, and a time to dance. A time to throw stones, and a time to gather stones. Time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. Whenever we come to a memorial, especially with someone who we admired and loved so dearly, we come filled with good memories. And so, yes, we'll be eulogizing today, and later sharing good stories if you stick around for the Shiva. But I want to invite us all to take a few moments of silence and to use that time to pray in your own way, but also to spend a few moments in loving memory and to bring forward a picture of Harriet in your mind. Maybe for some of you, 60, 70, 80 years ago, but who's counting age? Maybe some of us from more current decades. But bring that image forward and think about Harriet. See that smile. And think about the experience of Harriet Corren and how she made you feel and how she touched you. Let us take a few quiet moments of memory. Sparkling brown eyes, chestnut-shaded hair, topped with a vivacious personality, constitute the personality which make up Washington High School's cordial vice president, Harriet Berman. An interview with this popular lassie would probably result in something like this. Age 17, interests, swimming and dramatics, favorite subject, United States history, past experience, vice president of Presidio Junior High. If you haven't already had a chance to meet Harriet, perhaps you've seen her 5'4" and 1/2 inches, flirting around the building, taking care of the social calendar, which includes school dances and rallies. Opinions have been voiced in regards to the prospects of Berman Beauty being chosen as Girl of the Month. But as to the outcome of this statement, only time will tell. Until the occasion arises, however, we wish Harriet the best of luck in her career as vice president and know that she will be working, as always, to keep Washington way out in the front ranks. Wow. How could I ever top that? These words, celebrating Harriet's victory in her high school student body election, appeared in the school paper 80 years ago next month. Accompanying the article is a photo of Harriet, age 17, with her sparkling brown eyes, beautiful chestnut hair, and an enchanting smile that reflects the vivacious personality described in that article. She was obviously very popular and highly regarded by her fellow students, who entrusted her with this leadership role as their vice president. Of course, she had the skill and leadership ability and the smarts to be the student body president, but the title back then only went to the boys. She would have to wait another 34 years to break that glass ceiling, which she did when she was elected president of the board here at Temple Israel, the very first female president in the long history of this congregation. If you are a visitor here today, I encourage you after our service to find her picture out in the lobby on our wall of presidents. She served from 1978 to 1980 under Rabbi Chester, who's here this afternoon. I'm sure you had something to do with opening that door, Steve. Oh, come on, take some credit. And she opened the door for the many women who would follow in her footsteps. I don't know if there's a straight line connecting these two positions of prominence, but Harriet obviously had the intelligence and the personality and the leadership skills to do these important jobs, along with the warm, embracing personality that ingratiated her to everyone she met. And she also knew how to get things done. So many people in our community, especially women, have told me how inspired they were by her and what an important role model and mentor that she was to them. She truly was an extraordinary woman, a blessing to her family and her many friends and admirers, and to our temple community and beyond. Harriet was born in San Francisco in 1926, the daughter of Harry and Lucille Berman. It's the first time I'm actually getting her birth date. She used to keep that quiet. Her mother's family, which immigrated from Siberia, was small, but her father's family was big, and so she had many aunts and uncles and cousins and grandparents who were a big part of her life. She didn't know it at the time, but that experience of growing up in a large mishpacha was great training for marrying into the Corren family which was similarly a large dynasty and a very close-knit family. She used to joke, "You can't escape." But she knew what she was in for. But despite the blessing of a big family, Harriet's young life had its share of challenges. Harriet was only 9, and her younger brother, Ira, only 5, when their father died of a heart attack riding a San Francisco streetcar. His health had been failing for some time, but his death came as quite a shock and presented great hardship for the family. Her father was a stockbroker who was doing quite well, providing a very comfortable life for his family until the market crash of 1929. He carried a heavy burden after that, working very hard to sustain his family and trying to recover the wealth of his many clients. As his health was declining, he had a premonition that he wouldn't be around to see his children grow up. So he told Harriet's mother, Lou, a few of his wishes. One, that she raise his children with a strong Jewish education, and 2, that she never remarry, which sounds selfish, but evidently that was because he had a challenging upbringing with his own step-parent. This is all part of the well-known Berman family history. Well, Harriet's mother, Lou, was a strong woman who honored those wishes, never remarrying and working very hard to provide as best she could for Harriet and Ira. When they could no longer afford the beautiful house near the beach, they moved to a small apartment in a less expensive neighborhood, scaling down on expenses in every way. But Lou, with the help of family, did what she had to do, and she made it work. She enrolled her kids in the religious school at Congregation Shereth Israel, a very important formative experience for Harriet. And she worked very hard to give them every opportunity she could, such as elocution lessons for Harriet, among other things. She was a very good speaker. I'm only guessing here, but I think Harriet inherited her strength and her can-do attitude from her mother, who carried her family so admirably and with such determination. As Mel said, she really made it possible for Harriet to become who she was. When Harriet graduated from Washington High School, she went right out into the working world, taking her first job in a pawnbroker, jewelry, import, right? All those things. Business owned by their good friends, the Blumenthals. She also volunteered as an orderly in a military hospital. But her life was about to take a precipitous, unexpected turn. You have to understand that there are many connections between the Jews of San Francisco, Harriet's hometown, and the Jews of Stockton, where her beloved Mel grew up. It was her cousin Elaine who was the matchmaker, bringing Harriet and Mel together. She had been telling Mel about Harriet for quite some time, thinking they would be a good match, and Elaine had a good track record. Finally, on a trip to the city to enroll at the Rudolph Schaefer School of Interior Design, Mel found himself with a little time on his hands. So he called Elaine and jokingly said, "You know that girl you want me to meet? Wash that girl and bring her around." Oy vey, Mel. Elaine called Harriet, and despite the last-minute invitation, she agreed to go out. It was very late, so Harriet's mother wouldn't let Mel into the house. But she did let Harriet go out, and they went dancing at the Palace Hotel. And obviously, they hit it off. Mel said, "I never met such a pretty girl." And through thick and thin, she's stuck with me. The courtship lasted for about a year, leading to a beautiful wedding at the Geary Street Shul. Mel showed me a gorgeous picture of Harriet in her wedding dress, standing at the top of a flight of stairs with her long train covering 3 steps all the way down to the floor. Ay, it's worthy of a cover of Bride's magazine. She was that stunning. It was the beginning of a deep romance and a dynamic partnership that would last for 76 years. After the honeymoon, Harriet and Mel settled into their first Stockton home, an apartment behind the Empire Theater just off the Miracle Mile. It was a big adjustment for Harriet, with so many new people to meet in the Corren family alone, and a new community to find her place in. Of course, Harriet was good at that. As I've said already, she was so affable, she made friends with everyone, and she quickly became a part of this community. And Harriet had a very good memory, an Olympic memory, as her son Donald characterized it. That big. Whenever she met someone, she always remembered their name. And whenever anyone engaged with Harriet, she was such a good listener. Rather than talking about herself and listening to the sound of her own voice, she always asked questions about you. And she listened with sincere interest. She really wanted to know about you and about your experiences and to hear what you had to share. And of course, there were a handful of very special people and very deep friendships that Harriet was blessed to have. Her sister-in-law, Libby, and Ruthie Corren, and Jerry Berkman, and Marcia Davidson, all of blessed memory. They were a wonderful sisterhood of women, each of them a dynamo in their own right. 2 years into her marriage, Harriet gave birth to her older son, Howard, and 3 years later, Donald was born. And Harriet couldn't be happier because that's exactly what she wanted, to be a wife and a mother, raising a family and making a good life. I asked Howard and Donald if their mother was a traditional housewife of the 50s and 60s, and they laughed and they asked me what I meant by that. And I said, Leave It to Beaver, Ozzie, and Harriet. And they answered, no, she did not stand in the kitchen with an apron and pearls. And she was not a particularly good cook. And there was no favorite dish or baked good that stood out. But nobody starved. She did make dinner every night. And Mel was late every night because he was working so hard taking care of his many customers, which she understood. And no, she did not play second fiddle to her husband when it came to family matters. It was Harriet who was the organizer, and Harriet who was the moving force in the family, the one who managed the home and the family finances. Harriet was a very supportive and loving mother, always there for her boys. Supportive and permissive at the same time, encouraging them to pursue their dreams and do what they wanted to do. For Howard, that meant going off to Russia at the height of the Cold War to study Russian literature, and for Donald, leaving school to pursue a career as a musician and an actor. Neither of these decisions were what she would have chosen for her boys, and there were negotiations, but Harriet ultimately gave her blessing. And that was important. In the end, their happiness was her happiness. And that's what was most important. You know how proud she was of you. And you know how much she trusted you. Everyone in the family, and everyone here in Stockton, in decades past at least, knows about the history of the Corren family furniture business, M. Corren and Sons, and how Mel and his brother Hilly set out and created their own furniture business called the Brothers. But what you might not know, however, is that it was Harriet who first came up with that idea, and it was Harriet who delicately orchestrated the whole endeavor. Mel and Hilly initially were both working in the family business. Mel as the first and only interior decorator, and Hilly in the appliance store. Harriet saw how hard they were working, which was not a problem, but she also saw how there was a limit to their place there. With their father and so many uncles at the helm, it would take decades for them to become full partners. So Harriet gently and lovingly, I hope those are the right adjectives, and tenaciously encouraged them to go out on their own. And she was a big part of it, helping to make important decisions and helping to figure out how to make it work. She also came up with the name, the Brothers, which Mel and Hilly didn't like at first, until they realized how perfect it was. With her boys in middle school and high school, Harriet worked in the store, taking turns with Libby. Their names were not on the marquee, but they were both so very instrumental in the success of that business. In the late 90s, and after nearly 40 years, the Brothers closed its doors for the last time, and Mel and Harriet settled into retirement. Settled, of course, is a relative term, for the two of them continued to live a very active life, engaged in so many activities here in Stockton and traveling the country and the world together. There were so many trips to Denver to visit with Howard and Marty and to spend time with their grandchildren, Dan and Talia. I'm told they used to kidnap Dan and Talia so they could spend some quality time together, which Harriet loved. She was tickled pink to become a great-grandmother with the birth of her great-grandson, Archie. And so happy to know with Talia's pregnancy that another great-grandchild is on the way to be born any day now. And there were trips to New York to visit with Donald and his husband, Richard, who she adored, and to see Donald perform on stage, sometimes in starring roles of great notoriety. But Harriet was not a boastful person. She was far too modest and dignified, but she was very proud of you and of all her children and her grandchildren's successes. And the same can be said when it came to Mel, who, as former Stocktonian of the Year, is somewhat of a celebrity in this town. On more than one occasion, Mel has been showered with attention and great affection, appearing in the newspaper, sharing his vision of the city. Just a month ago, we celebrated his 100th birthday with a high holiday crowd showing up to celebrate with him. And Harriet was always by his side, just outside of that limelight. But you know, that's where she wanted to be. That's where she was content and most comfortable. In spite of her formidable strength and intelligence and the role she always played as leader and organizer, she didn't want or need accolades or notoriety. She was just happy to see that success all around her, happy to see her family and her community thriving. That was Harriet Corren, a proud woman of great dignity and beauty and grace who gave so much of herself to others. A loyal friend and devoted mother and wife and grandmother who stood at the center of her family, quietly radiating strength and love. We will miss her terribly, but we will all take inspiration from the example she set of righteous living and selfless devotion to others. Our community is so lucky, and our world is a better place because Harriet was here. I don't know if Washington High School ever elected her Girl of the Month, as that article I began with suggested. But to us, she was so much more than that, and her legacy so much deeper and meaningful. Rest in peace, Harriet, and know you were loved. Know that your legacy lives on. Zecher Tzadik Livracha. May the memory of the righteous, the memory of Harriet, be for an everlasting blessing. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May it be God's will. Amen. Those who are able, please rise for the El Malei Rachamim.
El Malei Rachamim, Shochen, Shochen Baramim, Amsei Menucha Nechuna, Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, Kedushim uTorim, Kezohar Harakim Mazerim et Nishmat Harriet bat Harry Velusil Shehalcha Lolama Bal Harachamim Yastereir Basitik and Afav Lolamim Mitzrah Achayim et Nishmata Adonai Hu Nachlata Venat Betanuach B'Shalom B'Shalom Al Mishkava V'nomar Amen.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Harriet, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in the shadow of your wings. and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divra cherutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayachon u'v'yomechon, uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'izman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mivarach leolam ulamei almaya. Yitbarak v'yishtabak v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha berichu la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran b'yalma v'imru, Amen. Yehi shlamad Rabbah min shamaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Osei shalom bimramav, huya asei shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. May God's name be sanctified and praised. May God's design for this world and for us and our people lead us to justice and good. May God, who has decreed that all who live must die, teach us to accept death, yet with all our hearts desire life. May God, whose plan for us is sometimes hidden, reveal the way to become stronger when we face the trials of life. And may God, Osei HaShalom, the maker of peace, be for us a source of comfort and strength and peace. And together we say, Amen. In the rising of the sun and its going down, we will remember her. In the blowing of the wind and the chill of winter, we will remember her. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember her. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember her. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember her. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember her. When we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember her. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember her. So long as we live, Harriet too shall live, for she is now a part of us as we remember her. This concludes our service, and I want to ask you to have a seat for a few moments. And I know the family would like to express their gratitude to the Zapians, Anna and her daughter Priscilla and Rosalia, who have all been so helpful and supportive throughout these past few weeks during Harriet's illness. Like angels, they came in and provided the help and the care that she needed and that we needed. So thank you to the Zapians. We're going to stay seated for just a few minutes. Right, Carm? Are we staying seated? What? Yeah. Okay. We're going to stay seated, those of us who are sitting in the pews, and those who are in the chairs in the back, we're going to ask you to stand, and anyone who's feeling strong today, we could use some volunteers to help and clear all the chairs back there. Making the room for our meal of consolation, we invite everyone to stay. And when we're finished with the meal, those who can stay longer, we're going to come back in the sanctuary for a brief Shiva Minyan, a brief service, and at that time have the opportunity to invite anyone who'd like to share a memory or a good story about Harriet to do so. So we encourage you to stay. And this is going to take just a few minutes, and we'll be ready.